moderating?
You can moderate.
Well, welcome to week number 2 for NFL Fantasy Matchup. There's a lot of things going on. Tommy's in Indonesia right now. Jed, you're in Illinois, and I'm glad that we're able to get together and talk about quarterbacks this week.
Tommy, what time is it where you're at?
It is 6 a.m.
Wow.
But for some reason, I got my times all wrong. So I got up today at 2 a.m., sat there until 3, preparing, thinking that we're going to jump on at 3 a.m. and realized, wait a minute, it doesn't happen for another 3 hours.
Yeah.
Then went back to bed and then woke up again. So I've been to Japan, then I've been to Malaysia, and I just got in here to Indonesia.
Wow.
Indonesia's nice. Did you know how many young 20-something-year-olds there are out there who are entrepreneurs and kind of starting some really cool things? I mean, it's a young place.
My mom was born in Indonesia, Chinese, but she was born in Indonesia before moving back to Hong Kong. So I've been there a couple times. It's a beautiful place.
Yep. All
And
right,
this
where do you want to start today?
Yeah, actually, one other thing. Tommy and I are doing a fantasy football league this week on Saturday with a bunch of people from around the world, Japan, Africa. So I'm looking forward to it. Sometimes I think that these guys don't know what they're talking about. They're actually pretty good. So news and notes.
The only problem with this team is it's 14 people in the league and it's a snake draft. I said, oh man.
I hate snake drafts.
Yeah.
Every year I'm going to say that. No more snake drafts.
All right, news and notes. First thing, I think Tommy just texted all of us. It just came out a little bit ago. Jonathan Taylor is taking a leave of absence or personal leave from the team. No one knows why, right? The team has said that they've approved his leave of absence. But what does that mean for the Colts and their running back situation, Jed?
Wow, that's I'm actually thinking, what does that mean for their wide receivers? Because that was where I felt like this is a good bounce back year for the Colts. A little bit under the radar, but that of course screws things up. Who's the backup now? Didn't they just sign?
So they have a rookie running back, and I got to look to see what his name is. But Deion Jackson, remember Deion?
Yeah,
he played with him last year, and he did actually pretty good for a couple of the games. But he's really going to be the Jonathan Taylor is not going to be playing.
Wow, that's huge. So I don't know.
Now, Jed, remember it was Kareem Hunt that they offered a larger contract over to Kareem Hunt, but so far Kareem Hunt has not signed with the Colts.
I heard that it's because he wants a lot more money, and the Colts aren't ready to give him the money. But to be honest, if Kareem Hunt signs with the Colts, I actually think that he's a pretty good play from a fantasy perspective. To take over for Jonathan Taylor.
Oh yeah, if Jonathan Taylor doesn't come back and Kareem Hunt's there, I'd be all over that.
Yeah.
That's a solid pickup, especially in a late round.
Yeah, I bet you would. Kareem, look, I mean, with Dalvin Cook signing and Ezekiel Elliott, he's the only good running back sitting out there right now. So he's probably waiting training camp for an injury or something to happen for him swooping. Now everyone's desperate and get more money.
Yeah. What'd you guys think of Dalvin Cook? That was a big dollar figure. I was surprised.
Yeah, Dalvin Cook signs with the Jets. They're saying that Breece Hall is still experiencing some pain in his knees that he had surgically repaired. And so I actually think that if I were to put a bet, I would say Dalvin Cook is going to do better than Ezekiel Elliott in terms of
easily. Yeah, I think Zeke is done. Like I did not like that signing for the Pats. But I know the Pats historically. Remember they had Corey Dillon back in the. I mean, they always had bruisers but no, this was really for me. The Zeke Elliott signing really hurts Ramondre Stevenson. I was looking at him. He was a guy I was targeting. Now I'm backing off because he's gonna lose carries. And so,
well, did you see the press conference with Belichick when they introduced him? Mm-hmm. One of the things that they had said was, we anticipate using Elliott during our red
zone.
Right. So I think so too, right? Like Ramondre is still their number one running back, but I can see Elliott being the guy if they're like 2 yards or 3 yards.
Scores all the points.
He's going to score the points.
Yeah. It
So,
stinks because Stevenson was a great sleeper, a good sleeper RB to pick up, and that a lot of people don't, just because of his name. I think a lot of people don't like recognize his name, and playing on the Patriots, you don't get a lot of that coverage. So he's off my board though now.
yeah.
And I think a lot of times, even with the Jets, if you sign Aaron Rodgers, you're all in. And
Yeah.
so you can't take a chance on Brees Hall. Will he come back? Will he not come back? So might as well sign an experienced person like Dalvin Cook, who may be able to pick up a system right away that Aaron Rodgers could depend on and see where it goes.
Yeah, and this also to me raises the profile of Aaron Rodgers. Like you guys know, I cannot stand Rodgers, but I think that's another. And Tommy, I think that might be your strategy. But he's a good person to target as a late round QB, and he could give top 10 numbers pretty easily.
Hey, remember, angry Aaron Rodgers and Molda is very, very motivated.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I'm also surprised, right? We're going to talk about quarterbacks later on, but going with Aaron Rodgers, I'm surprised how far up Garrett Wilson has been climbing. Some people really think that he's going to have this like monster year this year.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the bottom line is someone's got to catch. So I think there's going to be, I think it's going to be there. I think Rodgers is a good target. We can talk about quarterback strategy later. I think that's really important part of this. But unfortunately, I think Rodgers, I think you're right, Tommy. He's out for revenge. He took a lot less money so that they would sign big players. They're really going all in for this year. And as far as fantasy wise, I think the Jets are some of the players that you can target.
So just to let you know, Kareem Hunt is now visiting the Vikings.
Oh, really? Yeah.
That makes sense, actually, right? Him and Madison, they're kind of a similar, he's a little bit bulkier, but they're.
I mean, here's my thing. You have to be suspect, right? You have to be suspect about these running backs who've never played an entire season and always been running backups. And all of a sudden now they're starters, right? Pollards, the Madisons of the world. So if you're going to draft them or if you're going to have them on your team, you better make sure that you've got some sort of good backup as well, too. Yeah. Speaking of running backs, Javonte Williams said he will play this weekend against the 49ers. Are you going to draft Javonte Williams?
You know what? I got to see exactly how he does. It's the J.K. Dobbins situation as well, too. J.K. Dobbins, they were very, very careful with them. And then suddenly he started playing and then he started having pain. So I love it. It was a major injury. So I love Javonte Williams, but I would like to see what happens after the game once he plays. How many is he going to play? Maybe a series, maybe 2 series, 3 runs or something like that?
But if Javonte Williams is sitting there in the 6th round, or let's just say let's go to auction league, right? If you've got money left over and he's worth what, $10, are you going to put $10 on Javonte Williams?
Oh yeah, I will put definitely $10.
Yeah.
Now if we start going up to 15, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah. So in other words, like he's worth a flyer, and I like the way you're talking about that. It's like, like is it a 6th, a 7th, 8th round? Like I think he's worth that, or he's worth like in the $10 to $15 range for sure.
Yeah. Amon-Ra St. Brown sustains a leg injury at practice. They still don't know all the specifics or the details, but he was going high up there. Actually, I just did a draft 2 days ago, and I'm kicking myself because I picked Amon-Ra St. Brown over a Garrett Wilson. And now I was like, maybe I should have picked a Garrett Wilson instead of Amon-Ra
No,
St.
maybe
Brown.
you should have been in a league that didn't draft so early. That's what the mistake. But no, I feel really bad about that. I hope that it's not as bad as they're thinking, because he is really one of the climbers, right? When you think about the wide receivers who are ascending and could really have big, huge, years, this was one of the guys. So again, really devastating.
Yeah. But they did say if he's going to be gone for a little bit, right? The 2 people you want to pick up, Hawkinson, the tight end, and also the person that Tommy talked about last week, Jahmyr Gibbs, because Gibbs can fill in that run role where he's going to be able to catch and run at the same time.
Gibbs is a really tricky one though, right? Because who's the backup again?
David Montgomery.
From the Bears.
Yeah, see the Bears. And so I feel there's some people who think before the midway point of the season that Montgomery's going to take over from Gibbs, even though Gibbs is getting all the hype, that Montgomery is ultimately going to play out as the stronger of the 2. So it's a tough situation.
Yeah. So, and then lastly, the last bit of news, Zach Ertz ready to play in week 1. So if you need a tight end, Zach Ertz would you guys pick up a Zach Ertz on your team?
No, because Colt McCoy is throwing over to him. There's no one I trust on the Arizona Cardinals with Colt McCoy throwing to him.
No, but think about it. Who else are they? I mean, Marquise Brown, James Conner. Who else are they going to throw? And actually,
I would take Brown because you know what? They're going to be losing so many. They're going to be losing by so many points. They're just going to be playing backyard ball, which is basically throw it up to the guy who's running the deepest. That's going to be Marquise Brown, and he can win those. He can win those battles. So that's the guy that I would take over Zach Ertz.
Yeah.
See, Jed, a lot of times with Colt McCoy, here I think it's going to be 8 of 14 for 79 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. That's what I think of Colt McCoy.
Well, you know, as a Sooner fan, and he's a former Texan Longhorn, I have no problem saying that Colt McCoy sucks. So that's great.
Yeah. All right. Well, this week too, we're talking about quarterbacks. And before we hit all the tiers, I'm going to ask both of you, where do you usually draft your quarterbacks? Do you draft them early before everybody else, or do you wait a little bit? And what's the strategy behind waiting and drafting them early?
Yeah, I'll start and say I do not like taking quarterbacks early. I definitely like waiting at least till round 5 if you're in like snake auction wise. You know, I don't want to spend more than really like $15 on a quarterback if I can help it. Basically, the way I look at fantasy is it's all about, you know, management of like where's your star power. And quarterback is one of the positions where it's one of the few positions where the difference from the top tier to the bottom tier is not as great as the difference between the top tier and the bottom tier at particularly running back and wide receiver positions. So quarterback is basically the bottom line is you can't be good at every single position. So you got to pick 1 or 2 positions where you're going to be weaker, but it doesn't hurt you that much. And I think quarterback is one where you can do that and still come out on top. A good example of that is Geno Smith. Right? Like you take a Geno Smith pretty late last season, and guess what? You actually got a top 5 quarterback. He was the 5th rated quarterback, and you probably paid, you know, in the 15 to 20 range as far as 15th ranked to 20th ranked, you know, draft position. So you got a lot of good value. So I wait as long as I can wait. I can't wait as long as Tommy. Tommy really can wait, but I'm usually in the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th rounds before I'm hitting my quarterback.
And Jed, wouldn't you say a lot of times if it was a 10-team league, I definitely am waiting even more if it's a 12-team league. And so you're sitting there trying to figure out because, okay, who's going to pick up the second quarterback, all of that. Now, people have gotten smart and they've taken this strategy. And now you may have a Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson at a discounted deal. So you're now sitting there and said, wow, look at how much this guy fell. And that's one, maybe you're justified taking a large quarterback, but I love to wait. I will always wait for a quarterback.
Yeah. The one exception I want to say, and I just want to throw this out there because I have changed, you know, I've played fantasy for over 20 years now, and I've changed my philosophy on this, I would say over the past like 5 to 10 years, which is that I think it's okay now to incorporate people you like. Like if there's a guy you like, if you're
a Justin Fields,
yes,
right?
Like
Justin
if you're a Bears fan and you're a Justin Fields fan and he's available and you're gonna pay a little bit more, just go get him because you're gonna have so much fun. Like I've got DJ Moore on in our league. I'm gonna have a blast rooting for him and having him on my team. And so I think that's okay. Like sometimes you can't be so strict about like, you know, don't put your personal bias in there. Don't put your fan bias in there. I think it's okay because you're playing fantasy to have fun, right? So
like Cam Akers. I love Cam Akers.
Hey, there you go, Cam Akers.
Okay. Can you guess, according to ESPN, who was the quarterback that was on a majority of fantasy league winners last year?
Jalen Hurts.
That's pretty good. No, Jalen Hurts. It was Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
So yeah,
got to be Jalen Hurts because you got him pretty. You didn't have to pay like top dollar, but he paid out really, really well. And see, that's a guy.
Yeah,
Jalen Hurts is a guy I would say.
Who do you think is this year's Jalen Hurts?
I like Geno Smith, man. I've been saying I think people think like that he was a fluke and he's not going to repeat it. I don't think so. I think you can get good value with Geno Smith and he'll return well. I don't know if it'll be as good as Jalen Hurts, but
my argument is Trevor Lawrence. A lot of times you can still get him in the middle round. There is potential for him to be a superstar this year.
Yep, I totally agree.
I mean, we're looking at the tiers here, but I actually agree with Tommy. If I were to pick 2 people who could potentially be the Jalen Hurts for this year, it's Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence. I do think that Justin Fields is going a little higher, partly because people have bought in. But I actually think that Trevor Lawrence is still kind of going on the radar. But if you look at the people that he's got, right? Evan Ingram, he's got ETN, he's got Calvin Ridley, he's got Christian Kirk, right? He's got some good people around him where I think it'll help him this year.
Yeah. Also, the other thing I like about Trevor Lawrence, always think about the number of years. So there's this there's good statistical backing for quarterbacks in year 3, like having a really solid, like that's when things turn. Same thing with wide receivers. Usually wide receivers, it's year 2 to year 3. So keep track of that because that's sometimes when things start to click and then they really do explode.
Yeah.
Year 3, I find a lot of times year 1, some of them may do really well, but they struggle in year 2 as the defenses get used to them. Year 3, everything slows down, and now he has Doug Peterson, who does great. Look, he made Carson Wentz into a Pro Bowler, and so as a result, I think a lot of times he's gonna do wonders with Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give you my tier 1 quarterbacks, and tell me if you guys would add anybody to this tier, and then also if you think they're supposed to be in this tier. So tier 1, I only put 3 quarterbacks, right? Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, and Patrick Mahomes. They're going to be pretty consistent. I doubt any of you guys are going to draft them. Would you include anybody else in that tier 1 quarterback list?
No, and I think between the two, I would probably put Josh Allen at the top over Jalen Hurts as well as Patrick Mahomes, just because Josh Allen has been top 3, quarterback in terms of, he has been a top 3 quarterback 48% of the time in the last 3 years. So 48% of the time, he's always their top 3 quarterback compared to Patrick Mahomes, which is at 27%. Because of his running ability, I still believe that they're going to still run. I think Josh Allen has an edge over Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, I would actually, if Josh Allen is out there, right? And I can spend $35, which I think he'll go higher than that, I would pick up a Josh Allen because I actually think that he produces enough points with his legs, with his throwing abilities, that he's worth it. Now if it's getting to $40 or $50 in the draft, and if he's going in the second round, he's not worth it for me.
Okay, side note, let me ask you guys a question in terms of strategy and auction draft. So let's say you like a Josh Allen and he hasn't been picked up yet, and it's like the 5th time you're going through. Do you nominate your player or do you wait until everyone starts spending money and hope that he doesn't get picked? Which is a better strategy?
Oh, that's actually a really good question. Yeah.
I do not like this. That is a really good question. I do not like nominating players that I want to draft.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true. Yes. Yeah.
I want someone else to nominate.
So here's my thing. If I was, let's say, number 1 in our league, I'm going to throw out there a Patrick Mahomes because there's somebody out there who's going to spend a ton of money picking up Patrick Mahomes. I was like, I don't care. I didn't want him anyways. So I'm going to nominate him. I'm going to nominate like a Saquon Barkley, let them spend the money, and then hopefully come under the radar and nominate somebody, or at least have somebody nominate someone that I can put in, because I want to spend like $30, $35 on these quarterbacks. I don't want to spend $50 or $55.
Yeah. My goal is to nominate players that I do not want, that I know people will spend money on, especially the top quarterbacks. And then I just sit there and watch, because everyone thinks I have lots of money to spend. So suddenly I'm spending $60 on Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, so I'm doing that all day.
You guys are so Chinese.
Well, here's the thing, right? And I think we could talk about quarterbacks too, is I actually like to have tons of money as I go in. Once everyone spend it, I like to have tons of money as the draft goes on, because then, you can beat anybody else. If let's say, I don't know, like a Geno Smith is out there and someone can only bid $5 and you got $10, you can come in and sweep it and grab that guy. So I like to have money going into the later
you guys are both really good at that. You have to be patient though, and it's hard, but you both have proven you're able to do that. I will say though that sometimes the strategy of, you blow your money on a couple like studs, that can work. Like
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you pick the 2 right studs or 3, it can carry you where the rest of your picks don't even matter.
Yeah.
And so it does work, but
Well, the
it
way,
is
yeah,
better to wait.
the way I do it is I rank players based off of how much I would spend, right? So for instance, I know I can only spend one player somewhere between the $50 to $60 range. That's even pretty high for me. But I know if I spend it on, let's say, a Justin Jefferson or a Travis Kelsey, I don't have anybody else. So I'm usually pretty, I try to be picky about who I spend that money on as well, too. So all right, tier 2. Here's who I put. Tier 2, I put Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields, Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, and a Justin Herbert. Tier 2. What do you think? Anybody else you would add into that tier 2?
No, I think a lot of times, hey, look, I mean, Josh Fields has the potential to be an excellent, to really be able to rise up in one of your top quarterbacks, but don't sleep on Justin Herbert. And I think a lot of times he had a little rough year as well, too. But I think a lot of times with the Mike Wallace is great, Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler, you cannot sleep on Justin Herbert. If you have put Justin Herbert near the tier 1, I wouldn't be surprised by that.
Yeah, and that's where knowing that he has a new coach, right? He has Kellen Moore from Dallas. Yeah, and he's an excellent quarterback-friendly coach. So you would expect him to have a little bit of a bounce-back year. So I agree. Herbert is the guy I thought you could consider putting him into that tier 1.
Out of those 5 players, right? Jackson, Fields, Burrow, Lawrence, Herbert, who are the ones that you would consider drafting in your league?
I think a lot of times, hey, look, you know my love for Trevor Lawrence, right? If there is a way for me to get Trevor Lawrence, I will get that all day. But I'm going to bank on the fact that some people look at Lamar Jackson and he has such a bad year because he was injured that some people will bypass him and go to Justin Herbert and all Joe Burrow and all those guys. And that's when I'm watching Lamar Jackson, because in case he falls through, I'm snatching him up. Suddenly he has Odell Beckham, he has Zay Flowers, he has all these guys. I think he might be good.
J.K. Dobbins said he's 100% healthy.
Yeah.
So you have him.
I'm not a fan of Dobbins.
Gus Edwards.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Dobbins, but that's a good take on Lamar Jackson, Tommy, because you're right. He's been falling. His draft position has been low, and it's a good opportunity for a bounce back year. It's also why I really like Mark Andrews this year. Mark Andrews, his tight end, is I think an up-and-coming one too.
Jim, side note, Jim and Jed, you all know this is we play with all these different players. They don't follow up with these players like we do. So then when they're scrolling, they look at Lamar Jackson, they see a low number when they're sorting, and so they bypass them. That's when you go in.
Jed, are you keeping Burrow on your Dynasty League this year?
No, I am not. I actually, that was from before because I traded him. Like, I don't have him. So if I had him, I would probably consider it. But I'm not keeping Kyler Murray. I had Kyler Murray, and I'm dropping him.
I think Arizona's trying to dump Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
All right. The other person I was going to put on there that I think is missing is the person that you don't care for. Deshaun Watson, right? Well, if you look at let's take the last couple of years out. The 4 years he's played, he's always been top 5 quarterback.
Yep.
Does Deshaun Watson warrant being in that second tier of quarterbacks?
Yeah, he's the one I was going to say. I was like, that's another guy you could consider from tier 3 to tier 2. You guys know I don't like Watson. I totally think he's going to have a great year. Like, if it was not for my personal bias, that is a guy that I would target, because you probably can get him lower because there are people like me who will not draft him. But I think he would be a great pickup. I think he's going to get a lot of points. I just can't sacrifice my conscience for that. So,
and look, Deshaun Watson is 27 years old, but if you do look at his wide receivers, Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Elijah Moore, they don't inspire too much confidence. Maybe Amari Cooper a little bit, and then you have this stud Nick Chubb sitting there in the backfield. And so, but at the same time, I think he'll do pretty well this year.
I do. Yeah. Cooper had a great year last year, though. He was really good, and I do like the tight end. What's his name?
And Joku.
Yeah,
Njoku.
Njoku. I like the tight end this year as a sleeper. He's been roughly ranked in the 8, 9, 10 for tight end position. Again, I think you have to think about just general trends. And I think general trends the Cleveland Browns are going to improve on last year. And so Njoku could be a good recipient there.
The other reason why I would at least consider Watson in that tier 2 category, this year they don't have Kareem Hunt, right? He's always been one of the backs that they throw in there just to kind of change it up a little bit with Chubbs. And so what if this year, instead of Kareem Hunt, they have somebody like Watson who's using his legs, who's scoring some of these touchdowns, taking it away from Chubbs. So I actually think that from a leg standpoint as well as throwing, Watson's pretty attractive if you really want somebody in that middle rounds. Tier 3. So this is, I feel like this tier 3 is where you guys are going to focus on, right? You've got Geno Smith, Dak Prescott, you got Aaron Rodgers, and you got Tua in Miami.
I would be happy with any of those. Any of those.
Even Tua, you're going to be happy with Tua?
So if I had Tua, though, the only thing I would do because of the injury risk is I would try to draft another. So I'd have to have some backup. Maybe 2 of those guys out of that, but I would be happy with any from that group as my starting quarterback.
Yeah.
Look, Prescott, a lot of times, he's been struggling. A lot of times, here's some of his numbers in terms of rushing as well, too. 2 years ago, he had a total of 146 yards in 16 games in terms of rush yards. Then 182 yards last year. He has 15 interceptions. He has 68.6% percentage rate, passing rate. He has struggled a little bit. But at the same time, you have CD Lamb still over there. They're changing up the offense and all of that stuff. They just re-signed Zach Martin to they have a stud offensive line. I think a lot of times he had a down year, but I still have confidence in Dak Prescott, who has really been a top quarterback pretty much all his life.
And I love that Pollard is going to have a big year in my mind. And that means that Prescott's going to get all those little screen passes. He's going to get all that extra point from that. So I think that's, I like Prescott.
I would say the only thing that concerns me about Prescott in this group is McCarthy has already come out and says that he wants to be a running football team, right? Yeah. So, but that's the only thing is, like, if you're going to be a running football team, who do you got? You got Pollard, but Pollard's not that run down up the middle type of guy. He's like a screen guy where they're going to dump him off and they're going to run the ball. So I still, like you said, I actually think that, I mean, out of this group, right? Geno Smith, Prescott, Rodgers, Tua. I actually would put Rodgers higher than the rest of them, maybe like Geno Smith or Tua. But Prescott is intriguing to me.
Yeah, I think a lot of times Aaron Rodgers would be my priority, and I would probably snag him and then maybe grab a Anthony Richardson or someone like that. But I love a Aaron Rodgers just because he's angry. He has something to prove, and he's loading up, and I think he's going to have a great year.
Yeah. So tier 4, here's who I put in tier 4. Anthony Richardson, Daniel Jones, Russell Wilson, and here's a question mark. Kyler Murray, right? Kyler Murray is supposed to come back somewhere about games 6th or 7th game of the season. He's still a number 1 quarterback. I mean, if he was healthy today, I would still really put him in tier 2, tier 3. But would you guys draft any of these guys? Especially, even some people think Daniel Jones should actually go higher in terms of.
Tommy, you still like Daniel Jones?
I do a lot of times, but a lot of people I know don't like Daniel Jones, and so I know a lot of times he may sit in waivers, and so I could get him really, really cheap. Actually, the one person that you forgot from this list is Kirk Cousins. I think, especially with Justin Jefferson and all those guys like that, does he throw a lot of interceptions? He throws a lot of interceptions, but yet at the same time, he gets a lot of yardage. He does throw touchdowns. I would probably look at Kirk Cousins.
Hey, I finished watching that documentary on Netflix, and I was going to say I might draft Kirk Cousins just because of that. I mean, he definitely improved. I did not like the guy before. I like him a lot better now, and I think it really did wonders for his perception. But yeah, that's a good call. I wouldn't mind. But I was going to say, to me, you're talking about Tua. What if you draft Tua and then you draft Murray? That's a pretty good little combo because if Tua ends up getting hurt, here comes Murray coming back 4 or 5 games in. So
the only reason I don't like a Kirk Cousins is I think he's pretty consistent, right? You're going to get usually somewhere between 15 to 18 points from Kirk Cousins just because they got Jefferson and they got all those guys there. But don't you want to take a risk on somebody who's got a higher ceiling, right? Russell Wilson, for instance. I actually think Russell Wilson with Sean Payton may have a better year. And so if I can get like 20 to 25 points for my quarterback, that actually might be intriguing to me.
Oh, I disagree on Russell Wilson. I think he's done.
You think he's done?
I
You
think he's done.
No.
My oldest son, who's off at Purdue now, so I'll try to get some down low Purdue players.
Yeah.
He watched one of the preseason games, and he was telling me, he was like, it's really weird. They played Russell Wilson like almost the whole first half, and like that tells you that they're concerned. And then not only did he play the whole first half, he only scored one touchdown. So that there's definitely some issues going on in Denver, and I don't know. I think I might stay away from that.
Yeah. All right. Hey, we've got a couple minutes, but I'm gonna ask you guys a couple of questions, and we'll start with Tom. Tom, would you take a risk on Jordan Love?
No, because you could probably get Brock Purdy sitting there who's injured instead of Jordan Love. Brock Purdy is the guy I'm aiming at toward the end.
Jed, Jimmy G, Devontae Williams and the Raiders. Do you like Jimmy G?
I mean, as a backup, not as my starter. But like we said, like if you take a Tua and then you got Jimmy G as a backup or something, like, yeah, okay, I could do that.
And then for both of you guys, out of this group of first year rookies and second year players, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Desmond Ridder, right? Desmond Ridder is intriguing. Will Levis and Anthony Richardson. If you were drafting in a dynasty, who are you going to pick as quarterback?
Have you guys watched CJ Stroud? I've heard, I didn't watch, but I've heard that he has not looked good.
No, I've heard he hasn't looked good, and I heard Will Levis hasn't looked good as well to you, and now he's the number 3 on the depth chart.
Oh,
yeah.
Richardson is the one that intrigued me, and if not for Jonathan Taylor, that was the one that I was like, oh, I think he could be, that could be a good pick.
Yeah, Jim, I love the Anthony Richardson, but the person you forgot to respond or mention is that I love is Kenny Pickett. Don't sleep on Kenny Pickett just because you have George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, Allen Robinson, and Najee Harris all sitting on that team.
That is true. So actually, a lot of people really like him because they think that the receivers are actually going to be pretty good this year. Yeah.
And here's a good stat for you. In weeks 12 to 18, he had the highest passing grade of all of the quarterbacks in weeks 12 to 18 last year.
Wow.
By the way, guys, I dropped Najee Harris in our Dynasty League. So Najee Harris is sitting out there if you guys want to.
Right.
He's the guy I spent $80 on. Najee.
Yeah, I remember. You spent a lot.
And this year's going to be my Bijan Robinson.
Hey, can we go back to Brock Purdy? I know he's injured as well, too, but San Francisco, the offense, all of that, and when he played, he did really, really well. I mean, I am so intrigued by Brock Purdy.
Brock Purdy or Daniel Jones?
Brock Purdy.
Really? Oh.
Just because of the offense, just because of the San Francisco offense.
But here's the main thing. That's a risk you're taking. If you're going to draft a Brock Purdy, you better make sure you got like somebody consistent behind you. Who if he doesn't do well, if he's going to be injured, they can step in.
I will say I like Ayuk this year too because of that offense, because of Purdy. I think he's a good sleeper as the number 2 wide receiver there.
Yeah. If I was Jed, a lot of times he loves Tua. Hey, look, Tua's had a lot of concussions. One hit on the ground, he is out for the year. He's had so many concussions. And so that's a huge risk. It's not exercising your elbow, your knee. It's a concussion. And so they're going to be very, very careful with those guys. But you want a Brock Purdy or Kenny Pickett that you're sitting there as your backup ready to play.
Actually, I do like that. Whether it's Kyler Murray, Pickett, Brock Purdy, or somebody's good, because most likely Tua is going to be out at least a few games. But I bet he's going to start off pretty strong this year.
Yeah. Let me ask you both a question. Who is the starting quarterback for the Houston Texans?
Oh, I forgot his name. I looked that up. No, I saw it.
Is it Sam Howell? No, he's Washington.
No, that's Washington Commanders.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
I don't know.
And also, no one has mentioned Matt Jones. What do you guys think of Matt Jones?
No, he stinks. I don't like Matt Jones with New England. A lot of people would like that other guy, Zappy or whatever his name is. The team actually, I was actually listening to it. They were like, some people think that Zappy's a better quarterback than Matt Jones. I think Matt Jones just gets them all riled up.
You guys have also ignored Jared Goff as well too. I mean, look, Jared Goff does great inside inner domes, and they are playing their last 7 of 8 games inside a dome before the playoffs begin.
I don't know. I'm just not a Jared. I don't. Here's my thing. I've ignored Jared Goff. I'm not looking at Matt Stafford. I think they're all. I think some of these guys are trying to get into the Caleb Williams sweepstakes, and they're not going to play that much. I think Los Angeles is going to go after him. I think Detroit's going to go after him. I think some of these guys are not that good.
Oh, Derek Carr too. I heard Derek Carr. There's like a picture of him on Instagram, how he like bulked up over the season. So got to see how he does in New Orleans.
Yeah.
So
in Tampa Bay, it's been largely ignored. I mean, since Tom Brady, they have stud wide receivers, but nobody is talking about Tampa Bay at all.
Baker Mayfield, we'll see.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, anyways, we gotta go. Tom, when you coming back to the States again?
I am back on Monday, but one last thing I want to mention. Did you guys see in the news about the San Francisco baseball announcer, Giants baseball announcer, lost a fantasy bet? And as a result, losing a fantasy bet, he had to beat a ball boy for 1 game.
That's not a bad. I would do that. That's not bad.
I think that's pretty fun.
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
All right, I got to go.
All right. Thanks.
All right.
See you guys later.